guys, it's Emma, and today I am back for you with another book review, and this one is probably going to get a little heated just because it really disappointed me. I was looking forward to it a lot, and if my voice sounds deeper, it's because I got a head cold, but I'm in recovery, so you girl's good. The review today is on Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. I had high standards for this book. I really did, because I'm sorry, I saw Jack the Ripper and I was immediately intrigued. But I literally just got off the phone with Chief and this ain't it. I got very irritated with this book because we'll get into it. Anyway, let's go. This book is about this girl named Audrey Rose Wadsworth, and she is basically trying to be a forensic scientist in 18th century London, or in 1880 London. And you know, she's a girl, she's not really socially allowed, I guess, to go after such a grisly career because it wasn't proper for women to talk about, you know, blood and guts and stuff like that. And then Jack the Ripper shows up, and we all know what happened with Jack the Ripper. He was a famous serial killer who went after women, mostly prostitutes, during 18th century London, and he was never found out. It was never really figured out who he was. Some people said he went to New York. But he was never found out. It was never discovered who Jack the Ripper was. And so it's all about Audrey Rose and her partner Thomas trying to catch Jack the Ripper and find out who he is, because every single one of his victims ends up on Audrey Rose's table. Now, because this is YA, there's obviously a romance, which I wasn't mad about. Hell, I love a little romance here and there. But the chemistry in this book was weird. Audrey Rose and Thomas, who is her love interest, they both hated each other. And I'm all for the hate to love thing. But when it's written to a point where they literally hate each other, that it just becomes apparent, okay, they just don't like each other. But then the moment that they get in trouble, they're just all of a sudden able to just declare each other's love for each other. It's like that weird sexual tension that really isn't even sexual, but it's just like they just hate each other so much and you don't even want them in the room, like the same room together. You know what I mean? It's that type of weird. I get that this is supposed to be a feminist book, which is perfectly all right. You know, that was one of the reasons why I picked it up. Because it's a girl in 18th century London trying to become a forensic analyst, which is amazing. It's just, her feminist outbursts were every other page. Like, I get it if you have some complaints about how men treat you back then, because obviously women weren't treated very well. But when you have to monologue about your complaints about men and society every other page, it gets annoying, and therefore it gets a bit overused, and I personally don't like that, because then it dulls your message. And the message in here was that, hey, women can deal with the grisly stuff too, perhaps even better than men. But with the amount of outbursts and just the amount of monologuing that Audrey Rose does, it came off as very annoying and, like I said, overused. Now, this book, like I said before, I was attracted to it because it said Jack the Ripper on it, and so I'm thinking Stalking Jack the Ripper. I'm thinking it's going to be, you know, we're chasing Jack the Ripper through 18th century London, and we're going to try and find him and capture him, and we're gonna find out who he is, right? With maybe a little, like, romance dabbled here and there. No. This book is 75% romance and 25% crime solving. Like, and that wouldn't even bother me as much if the romance was good. Like I said before, the chemistry was weird. So you had that weird tension between two main characters that just didn't like each other. They were written to hate each other. Enough about the romance, at least for now. But Audrey Rose This girl, she was obviously a very feminist person. She had feminist monologues and outbursts here and there, which is okay. But again, it was overused. Still, not my point. My point is, she was judgmental of other women who weren't as enlightened as her. Newsflash, Audrey, not everybody back then was privileged enough to care about feminism back then, okay? It is not your job to judge women who have literally been brainwashed back then, because that's how women were treated back then. They were brainwashed to think that you are less than a man, you have to stay at home, do the dishes, and take care of the kids. That's all you're good for. Basically, that is what they were brainwashed to do. You, however, Audrey Rose, have the power and the ability and the privilege to be able to care about feminism. That is a luxury you can afford. Maybe other girls can't afford that luxury, but it is not your place to judge them based upon their enlightenment about feminism, okay? Calm down. Then she's inconsistent with her love interest. Besides the chemistry being weird, she's inconsistent with it as well. Because at one minute, she hates Thomas, and then another minute, she's completely floored by him. Like dripping in hormones. When I tell you, this girl goes from point A to point B like that. She'll be berating him one minute because of something he said, and then she will be thinking about what he said to her. Like, he'll call her pretty or beautiful in like some slick kind of way. Then she'll like, you know, tell him to shut up or something like that. But then in her mind, she'll be thinking, oh my gosh, did he actually say that? Like, did he mean it? And then I'm thinking, girl, literally 5 minutes ago, you were just angry at him for assuming that you might throw up at the sight of a dead body. And now you're going to be thinking about, oh, he cares about me now that he's concerned about whether or not you're going to vomit? What? That makes no sense. This girl is supposed to be bright and bold. Bold? Yes. Bright? Debatable. At one point in the story, she knows that there is a psychotic serial killer lurking around London, killing women at night in this specific area, in Whitechapel. So what does she do? She sneaks out of her window, alone, at night, and goes to a pub of full-grown men. Mind you, she's 17. Before she makes stupid decisions like these, she contemplates it for a good 20 minutes. She literally says that she doesn't think it's a good idea, but then she does it anyway. And to top it all off, she dresses like a poor woman in order to bait Jack the Ripper. You are all alone. You don't have Thomas, you don't have Nathaniel, you don't have your father, you don't have anybody with you. You are a lone 17-year-old girl going out in the middle of the night looking for a serial killer whom you have no idea what he looks like. In what world is that smart? Please tell me. I might be overreacting, but that is so stupid. She makes other impractical and illogical decisions based on what she thinks she can do. Not to mention, she's incredibly selfish. Like, she's not selfish with material things, she's selfish emotionally. She doesn't seem to comprehend that other people are allowed, or other people can feel the same things as her. For example, her brother Nathaniel. When Nathaniel and Audrey Rose's father goes to the country in order to have some alone time, you know, Audrey Rose, being the girl, she doesn't have any responsibilities. Her only responsibility is to look for Jack the Ripper. Okay, so that's Audrey Rose's responsibility. Nathaniel's responsibilities, however, being the man of the house now, he has to take care of the servants, take care of the house, take care of the money, and also his sister who keeps running away at night. So, Audrey Rose, you may feel stressed, babe, but Nathaniel has a bunch of other problems that he has to take care of by himself. So, don't blame him because he's screaming at you because you keep sneaking out in the middle of the night and putting yourself in danger. Because if anything happens to you, it's Nathaniel's head. It's bad because she will realize it afterwards. Like, she will snap at him because she's stressed. which I get, in all honesty, because she's stalking a serial killer. However, Nathaniel feels stressed too. She always comments how he has like bags under his eyes, how his hair is all ruffled and stuff like that. But, you know, then she'll apologize. She'll feel remorseful about it. She'll think about it. She will contemplate with herself about it. But then she'll do it again. And then she'll apologize. And then she'll contemplate about it. And then she'll do it again. And then another example of whom she was selfish with emotionally, she was selfish with Thomas. Because she got angry that Thomas did not tell her that Thomas's mother had died due to like a problem with her gallbladder during a surgery, and he just didn't want to talk about it. Meanwhile, Audrey Rose got mad at him for not telling her about it. Meanwhile, Audrey Rose's mother died from a similar problem, not from her gallbladder, but like from a heart problem. However, her mother still died on an operating table, just like Thomas's, right? And she doesn't like talking about her mother, and she gets very defensive about when people talk about her mother to her. So why is it that she can withhold her mother's information about how her mother died, however Thomas cannot and has to tell her about why his mother died, how his mother died, that his mother even died? It just comes off so hypocritical to me. It's unbelievable. Now let's talk about the love interest. Thomas Cresswell. Don't get me wrong, I did like Thomas more than Audrey. However, Thomas was high-key very rude. He would talk down to people he thought were lesser than him, for example, servants, even adults. And at one point, he's screaming at a servant in order to get the carriage around, and I'm thinking, Thomas, no matter how much you scream at something, that doesn't mean it's going to get done any faster, okay? So you need to chill the testosterone a bit, okay? Sit down, have a crumpet, and drink some tea, please. Not to mention, he is the personification of the cold and hard on the outside, but he's a real softie deep down. I personally do not have a problem with tropes. It's just when they're written badly, that's when I have a problem with them. That's when I believe they become actual tropes, when they're written badly, because then they actually stand out to you, and then you have a problem with them. One thing that got me very confused, Audrey Rose is apparently biracial. It is said in the book that her mother is Indian and had bronze skin, and her father is an Englishman. Okay. Englishman in 18th century, obviously white. So, you know, with a white father and an Indian mother, you know, Audrey Rose and Nathaniel are biracial children, which I had no problem with. I thought that was amazing. I didn't expect that at all. One problem. It is said, time and time again, that Audrey Rose is illuminatingly pale. And that Nathaniel is too. How do they have an Indian mother that had, quote, bronze skin and still are illuminatingly pale? I am not a genetics expert. I am fairly certain that if a white Englishman and a brown Indian woman had children, I guarantee you that her melanin would not be completely whitewashed and blanched by his genes. Does she look Indian by any means of the word? Is there a speck of melanin in this girl? I think not. She just needs to not let everything she feels go to her head, because in this line of work you need to be able to turn off your emotions to some sort of degree, and Thomas had that down pat. Audrey Rose was obviously not learning very well on how to do it. She never really does learn how to do it, but in every moment on and beforehand, there's honestly an underlying motif about women are very emotional, and that for some lines of work they just aren't cut out because their emotions will get in the way. And Audrey Rose is honestly a bit complacent with this motif. And it makes me angry because this is supposed to be a feminist book. It's supposed to be showing that women can do anything. And we're not emotional. We don't let our emotions get in the way of anything. But Audrey Rose is completely the opposite of this, and she just opposes that idea with every little thing that she takes to her head. She lets almost every little thing go like that goes against her go to her head, and it does not make sense to me. Because if you want people to treat you legitimately, you have to act professionally. And this, the way she acts, it's completely juvenile. Also, whenever Thomas and Audrey are like going off for clues, they always happen to find clues randomly or are very slow to connect with the clues. They often do things based on hunches, and that gets a little iffy for me. For instance, they will come upon a crime scene and they'll come upon a murder weapon, or they will come upon a corpse, and they'll look at the body and they'll think, okay, if this is what the criminal was thinking, out of 1,000 other things that the criminal could be thinking, then if he was thinking this specific thing, then the serial killer could do this particular thing out of 1,000 other things that he could do. So we're gonna go on a hunch and believe that he was thinking about this specific thing, and then we're gonna go off and just play with the idea that he was going to do this specific thing. You know what I mean? And it worked out every single time. They would do things on hunches every single time, and it got to a point where it was like, can y'all actually like back up what you guys are gonna do? Can you actually back up your criminal's motive at least once, so that your audience can actually believe you know what you're doing? It came off, honestly, like Thomas and Audrey were just following a wild goose chase and just happened upon clues that fell into their lap. If you're gonna have a crime-solving story, you need to have factual and stone-hard clues and evidence to make your audience believe that this is what the killer did and this is what the killer is gonna do next. Alright, spoilers. Nathaniel turns out to be Jack the Ripper, and Nathaniel is Audrey Rose's brother, and, you know, they find out, they have, like, that whole thing, you know, this is the villain, dun dun dun, and this is why he did it, and this is what he's gonna do next, and bam, we found him, and everything. Well, Nathaniel electrocutes himself, killing himself. It was Audrey Rose, Thomas, and then the father that stopped Nathaniel. But the only thing that stopped Nathaniel, granted, because Nathaniel was on a roll, he was on a serial killer roll, until the father said, no, stop doing this. And Nathaniel stopped. That's what it takes to stop a serial killer? That's all it takes? Just a scolding from their parent? Yo, ATLPD, take notes, please. NYPD, police departments everywhere, take notes. All you need to do to stop a serial killer is just have their family members scold them, and they will stop. The biggest problem that I had with this book was that before he committed, Thomas, Audrey, and their father gave him a choice. He could either stay and be hanged for his crimes by Scotland Yard, or he could run and be chased by the police, probably for the rest of his life, until he could get away in order to find a new life. Obviously, Nathaniel chose neither of those and to kill himself, okay. But the fact was that if he had chosen to, you know, run away, the family would have let him. Audrey, Thomas, and the father would have let him go. They would have let him leave and get off scot-free. Now, that didn't happen. However, when Nathaniel did die, their father covered him up completely, destroyed any trace that the police would have found in order to connect him to Jack the Ripper and the murders. That is so messed up on so many levels. That is not fair. How come Nathaniel gets to go off scot-free just because his family members cared about him? I guarantee you the victims' families cared about them, but did they get justice? No. Why? Because he happened to be somebody's son and brother. Did they even get to know who killed their family members? No. Why? Because Nathaniel Wadsworth happened to be Audrey Rose's brother, and she doesn't want to talk about it, and neither does the father. I get it. I mean, like, he's your brother, but still, he killed 6 people. Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. I gave this book 2 stars. It was interesting at some points, but a good 1/6 of it was interesting. That's like one of the 2 stars. And then the other 5/6 of it were just annoying. I was actually pushing through from like 250 and up, and this isn't a long book. I was debating DNFing this book at page 250 out of 318. It makes me so sad because now I don't even want to read the sequel, Hunting Prince Dracula, because if it's the same as, or if it follows the same thing as this book, I don't want to read it, because one, I don't want to have to deal with Audrey Rose again. I kind of want to see Thomas again. I don't want to have another moral thing that I disagree with. I picked it up because it saw Jack the Ripper on it. It looked so cool because I'm a history geek. I love historical fiction, and Jack the Ripper was a historical serial killer, and nobody ever found out who he was. I thought it was going to be amazing. But just the fact that it went in that, but just the little things that happened in it disappointed me very much. So, Stalking Jack the Ripper, Kerri Maniscalco, I'm sorry, this is a 2-star book to me. It ruined my good book streak, man. I had read like 5 good books already before this one, and then this one comes along and ruins my streak. Not fair. Not fair. So mean. Anybody that felt the same way as me, please let me know down in the comments. Please don't let me be alone. But yeah, please tell me your opinions about this book, what you thought about it, whether or not you thought it was 2 stars like me, whether or not you had the same problems as me, or whether you thought it was good and you thought basically what I'm talking about right now was complete and utter bullcrap. Please tell me, so that then maybe I can understand where the author was trying to go with this book, because as of right now, I really don't understand. I mean, I've seen better debut novels. I'll tell you that.